Okay, let's start. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Green Building webinar on how to access to the 18 trillion green investment opportunity in Asia. The Green Building webinar is co-hosted by the IFC, the Hong Kong Green Finance Association, supporting by the Hong Kong Financial Services Development Council, the Hong Kong Green Building Council, and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and the Hong Kong Quality Assurance Agency. My name is Tracy Wong Harris, Deputy Secretary General of the Hong Kong Green Finance Association. I will be your moderator for the webinar. The green building industry is close to my heart, and I hope you are as excited as me for this webinar. Some housekeeping. Before I introduce our presenter from IFC, during the webinar, we will have a few polling questions, which I ask your active participation, so you can take a minute to do them now. Also, I encourage you to take this opportunity to ask questions by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will try to answer as many questions as possible during the webinar. We have packed topics to cover during this webinar. Without further ado, let me introduce our speaker, Mr. Rusmir Music, the Global Business Development Lead for the Green Building Program from the IFC, also supported by Ms. Hao Gao from the IFC China Green Building Advisory Team. So the hardest part for me is over by having to pronounce Rusmir's full name. So let's go straight to today's topic. Rusmir, to set the scene, can I ask you to give a brief introduction of IFC and how IFC works in the green building industry? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. You did a great job on pronouncing my name, and we did some coaching right before. Let's see, I can probably end the polling for everyone or keep it going. But to give you just an idea of my name, I was born and raised in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so I myself come from emerging markets. And this really shows you that EDGE, as we like to say, is of the people and for the people. So we have a really fabulous international team that is all working together. We may be based here in Washington, D.C. at the World Bank headquarters, but all of us come from many different countries and we work together. The introduction to IFC is that we are a member of the World Bank group that's focused on the private sector. We are the largest development finance institution that is solely focused on the private sector. And part of our mission is to create markets to support climate business. And I will illustrate that with our work in green buildings. So you can see that IFC created the Green Building Market Transformation Program as a comprehensive approach to sustainable buildings. This is a four-part strategy that includes working with banks, investing directly into the building sector, advising governments on green building codes, as well as on incentives of green buildings. And all of that is wrapped in the EDGE certification program. IFC is first and foremost an investment bank, and we ourselves have done at least $5.5 billion in investments into green buildings. I'm waiting to hear for the information for the latest fiscal year, and I think that number has gone up by at least another billion. And so we expect that to be much higher, and we have very, very high hopes for the type of work that we can do. Let me give you an example of IFC's work in catalyzing green building markets through the case study of South Africa. To address the housing shortage in the country, IFC invested initially only $21 million in a fund managed by IHS, which is a large equity investor in South Africa's affordable market segment. They were the first in Africa to adopt IFC's EDGE standard. What they have done is they used EDGE to find the best solutions to save energy and water given the local climate and construction practices. As a result, and you will see this in future examples as well in our case studies, IHS was able to minimize incremental costs from an initial 2 to 6% when we started working with them. Actually, I was the one that worked with them. I moved to South Africa for 4 months to launch this program, down to as little as 0.25% extra per unit, something that the developer was easily able to incorporate into their costs. Many of their green measures are centered on passive design or other sensible measures such as low flow showers. What they have done is they were able to sell their homes by saying that the buyers of their homes, actually in this case it's the renters, will be saving 1 month of rent equal of utility bills over the course of the year. And we have data that was published in a peer-reviewed Housing Finance International journal comparing an EDGE certified property to another non-certified property. IFC then continued to work on other education. We worked with Baldwin that committed to certifying 16,000 units in a largest ever EDGE registration, and then led to action by the financial markets. And we really see the financial markets and your colleagues as the best way to move this agenda forward. So APSA, one of the largest banks in South Africa, announced a partnership with Baldwin for an eco-home green mortgages investment product. And our hope is to help you in China and in Hong Kong replicate these findings. IFC has already helped both investors, developers, and governments launch innovative financial products for green buildings. You can see a preview here of the case studies along the green construction finance for commercial, residential, and industrial properties, for green mortgages, and in capital markets. At the same time, governments, and as you will see, as well as local governments in Asia, are launching incentives across the spectrum to catalyze the market. So today, we're giving you a preview of these resources, and then our colleagues Hao, Shirong, and others in Asia can help you implement these resources in your market specifically. So how is that for the introduction? What questions should we answer next? Oh, you're on mute.
Good points. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all the good works IFC's been doing and to drive the green building industry. So let's dive into the hot topics. Where are the green building investment opportunities? And addressing some questions, what are the definitions of green buildings and what are the typical green finance standards and some case studies on how to assess green finance?
Great, and we will answer all these, and you're welcome to, as Tracy said, post questions along the way, and we'll take some pauses and answer those as well. Green buildings today may comprise a relatively small share of global construction, but the market is expected to grow substantially. Our prediction, this was published in IFC's Green Buildings Report. You will get these materials very soon once the recording is generated, and there will be links for you, but the report is live already. You will see that our prediction is that green buildings can be a $24 trillion investment opportunity in the next 10 years. A lot of it comes from East Asia. That's a $16 trillion investment opportunity with an additional $1.8 trillion in South Asia. These numbers are largely resulting from a construction boom in China and government regulations for green buildings. One of the reasons for these large numbers, and we do have them by country as well as by sector, this is all released in our Green Buildings Report, is that construction is not a new sector. Buildings are being built as we speak right now. So builders and investors are not exploring new assets such as solar or offshore wind. They're doing something that they understand already how to do. And as you will see, our message over and over, and I do have to credit our director with this, is if you build it, you can build it green. And it is possible to do so. The other reason is that while green buildings are not a new concept in a sophisticated market such as yours in the greater Hong Kong Bay Area, the concept of green right now is being implemented only by the top properties. So top-end offices, maybe some hotels, maybe some industrial facilities. Completely unaddressed is a large portion of buildings, including residential, or sort of the second tier of offices and others. And you will see that a system such as EDGE and the case studies that IFC has put together has the ability to make even the residential market go green. What we like to say is that we're democratizing green buildings. We think that all buildings can be green, and we have case studies to prove that. You asked about definitions, so let's take a look at that. IFC created EDGE actually in our program in part to answer the need for a common definition of a green building that connects investors, developers, buyers, and regulators. So we have distilled the definitions that we have seen from others, agreeing that a building, one, must obtain a local or international standard of green building certification. And this has to be verified by an independent party. It is not enough to self-declare the building has met a standard. It has to be certified by a reputable certification system. The building also needs to have at least 20% more resource efficiency than a comparable baseline building in the local market. And in order to satisfy green finance requirements, these projects must have quantified impact reporting on an individual project basis and on a portfolio basis through impact measures such as energy and water saved or reduced GHG emissions. Notice here that we don't say that the required system is EDGE. We'll talk a lot about EDGE, but IFC is in fact agnostic to the type of standards that we use. We just ask that the building be certified. The beauty of it is that once the building is certified and it complies with these standards, it buys you access into international green finance. And the other standards that we worked with are, for example, investor-oriented associations such as the International Capital Markets Association. They have their green bond principles. The Climate Bonds Initiative, which certifies a lot of the green bonds that go on the market. And we also work with real estate bodies such as GRESB and disclosure platforms such as CDP. And we worked actually on a webinar with CDP for Asia to show that both companies on a portfolio basis as well as cities can disclose their action through their platform. In China, our system EDGE is also aligned with the local green building labeling system known as 3-star. And I know that Tracy pointed out to me that we need to continue aligning this with the local Hong Kong standard as well, and we work on that. So IFC worked with the Center of Science and Technology and MOHURD to make EDGE a bit of like an Intel Inside, which produces alignment with the local certification. And what we want to do is to make sure that working with green buildings, you can access both local incentives, such as in Hong Kong itself or in other parts of China, or if you're working in other parts of Asia, as well as to access international green finance. You really need to be able to do both, to access local incentives and to be able to spin off things like green bonds or securitization or things down the line on the international green market. And working with us helps you to do both of those things. Here are a few case studies of how that has happened and how our clients have accessed important sources of green finance. So you'll see in a little bit a deeper case study of Bancolombia, which launched a $400 million investment program. Initially, this is actually their pilot program was for $400 million. They're now expanding that into neighboring countries around Colombia. And the EDGE label allowed them the issuance of a pair of green bonds, which financed the program. Another case study is Acorn in Kenya. This is a developer that has utilized the relationship with IFC and realized they can launch a green bond for their portfolio of green student housing in Kenya. This was Kenya's first green bond. It was not actually launched by a bank. It was launched by a developer, which is very interesting. And the company received a lot of attention when it launched this trading first on the Nairobi Stock Exchange and then kicked it up on the London Stock Exchange. And they actually are now, they won the Climate Bonds Initiative Green Bond Pioneer Award. Interestingly, the Kenyan government has now passed a law that makes interest from green bonds tax exempt. And we think it's going to further motivate investments in this instrument. And finally, the last example is the green label also allows for refinance of properties. So we work with HSBC, actually their Hong Kong office. They were a great client of ours, and they invested into Indospace for a refinance of about $130 million properties through a certified green loan, which was, the green framework was verified by Cicero, one of the leading providers of second opinion on the capital markets. So lots of different examples. We'll do some more deep dives into each one of these. A couple of reasons why developers should go for green buildings, and I'll go right ahead and dive into each one of these, but this is sort of the kickoff slide. One of the main barriers to building green is the perception of high costs of green measures. This is why green buildings, as I said, have stayed with that top-end properties that have been able to afford the green measures. And interestingly, it's not the cost of the green part that is the expensive part. It's the cost of compliance. And the cost of compliance, the paperwork, gets commingled with the idea of the cost of green, so that people believe that the green buildings inherently are more costly. And that is not true. Evidence across many markets suggests that incremental cost of building green is significantly lower than previously thought, particularly where green measures are incorporated early in the design of a building, but they even work for retrofits. The cost of the building may vary along locations, but these 4 examples show that green interventions are economical across geographies, even for low-income housing. These are the examples that we have. This is all for affordable housing. In South Africa, as I said, IHS told us they brought the cost down to about 0.25% of the incremental cost. Capital House, which is a low-income housing developer, similar idea. In Mexico, IFC's client Vinte builds affordable communities. Actually, they built entire communities that include both hospitals and health clinics, parks, and schools. The cost of adding green for them is about $300 per home. In Indonesia, comparable probably to the work that you're doing in China, the EDGE-certified development Citra Maya reported the additional cost of green measures about 4.7%. And we know from our clients that they're bringing all of that down. All of these case studies, as I said, are available in our Green Buildings report, and we have many more on our website, and you can see how these buildings achieved this work. Another example of the utility cost reduction is in the commercial sector this time, is the AC Hotels Veracruz under the Marriott Hotels brand. And this case study is described in the paper that IFC published with the International Tourism Partnership, called the Business Case for Sustainable Hotels paper. The paper includes many more case studies, as well as a return on investment analysis. And this ROI analysis shows that hotels in most countries can achieve 20% resource efficiency with less than a year payback period. We also showed that for retrofits, the payback period varies, but it can be as little as 2 years up to 5 years. Very attractive for these properties where the lights are on 24/7, basically. In the case of Veracruz, they employed very sensible measures such as efficient lighting, HVAC, and plumbing. And this is the key part. No increased cost to their plans, no incremental costs. They were able to source this in a way that what they were planned to do, they were able to achieve the green label at 0 incremental cost. But the savings were tremendous. The utility reduction resulted in predicted $87,000 savings per year. Our paper with ITP includes other reasons to go green in this sector, including preferences by consumers, an ability to attract green finance, as well as safeguarding from regulatory risk and benefiting from local incentives, as you will see. In the residential sector, again, this is the data I promised to show you from the IHS case study in South Africa. And this was published in the Housing Finance International Journal. We had smart meter data, which showed significant utility savings in properties that utilized EDGE over similar non-certified properties. And these annual savings add up to about 1 month of rent for the residents. And the way that both commercial and residential properties are then monetizing this is that they're showing quicker sales. So this is an example of Capital House, a developer of affordable housing that we worked with in Vietnam. They told us that they had an increase of 3 times of the frequency of sales through certification for their low-income housing. Same story, very sensible features, less than 1% more in capital cost. But what they did is they held a model apartment showcase with World Bank Group branding, with media appearances, and this is what led to the significant increase in their sales. And they also won the Financial Times Transformational Business Award in 2018 for their work in low-income housing. So lots of really great examples. Few case studies of investors, and then after that I'll stop and see what questions you have. Yes.
sorry for interrupt. Before you go to the next one, so some questions from the audience.
Oh,
For one
sure.
of them, I think, yeah, for one of them, I think you have a better answer than me because you know the project very well. She mentioned that the edge is allowed for refinance under green loan. That is what we do for Indo Space, I think. So since Edge uses simulated building data, so how it realize refinance under green loan, and would ongoing impact reporting monitoring be required? So that's a question from the audience.
It's a great question. So yeah, Edge is, and you'll see it, Edge is available for new buildings and for retrofits. And in the case of HSBC, it was used for refinance. So you can refinance a property either through a green bond or a green loan. It's a very similar mechanism. It is still allowed. One of the things that you will see with Edge is that we provide all of the data, at least ex ante for the project. So we marry the financial impact with environmental impact. So a project ahead of time will know what their upfront costs are, and they will know their environmental impact. So as of now, with the green bond principles, the projects only, the issuers of green bonds or green loans only need to show ex ante what the projects are meant to achieve. There hasn't been guidance on post monitoring. That's something that I think the investors will eventually ask for. And this is something, again, that we can help the projects through with some of the smart meter data and others, and we can guide them through that process. So the guidance right now is only to show the anticipated impact. The investors haven't really asked for it to move downstream, but you can sort of see it being something that gets asked for in the future. But we can work with you on that as well, especially if the building gets certified for zero carbon, because then you can show really that not only are you achieving energy efficiency, you're procuring renewable energy for a true zero carbon, zero footprint option. That's a great question.
Thank you, Rosemary. To add to that, I think for the post-monitoring requirements, we have seen the sustainability link product, KPI products being picked up since end of last year in the market, where really to address this issue. So not just from the estimate level of environmental impact that you can achieve, but actually we hold you accountable and reward you from green finance accordingly to your KPI achievement.
Exactly.
Good
question. Let's do a few more of these case studies, and we'll open up some more questions for there. I know that there was a lot of bankers on the side, so we have at least about 22% bankers and financiers and about 11% ESG investors on the line. So these are some of the advantages for investors to go into this sector. And I want to show here, I mentioned briefly that example of Bancolombia. What they did is they decided to grow their green building portfolio and issued first a green bond with IFC support, and then another green bond that was on the public market. So the IFC was actually the sole buyer of their first green bond, and the second green bond was in the public market. It was oversubscribed almost 3 times, and they actually think they could have done that more. Every single one of our clients that we have spoken to has said to us that their green bonds were oversubscribed. There was a lot more interest. I think Bancolombia said, up to 10 times they could have issued the bond because the interest was so high. The reason for that is that international investors, pension funds, especially from Europe, but even from Asia, and I'm working with some pension funds in Africa, are looking for long-term products that have environmental impact. So they're looking to deploy their financing, and green bond is a really attractive area for them to go to. So there's a lot more interest, and the certification and working with the likes of IFC makes you sort of more bankable, if you will. There's a stamp of approval and an access to the international market there. What Bancolombia did, this is a true one and we would love others to follow, is they offered an incentive for both the developers and the home buyers. Up to 2% less than conventional market rates for construction finance and 65 basis points lower for green mortgages. We truly can point to, and they also offer technical assistance and education to their developers. We can truly point to the action by Bancolombia, as well as some incentives by the government, to say that we have transformed the market in Colombia. Before EDGE started, or IFC started working with this in the country, there was one certified green home project for, I think, 20,000 square meters. We now have 1.4 million square meters in just 2 years in a country that's not necessarily that large. And they're now expanding this work into El Salvador and Panama. So we can really show that the action by financial markets can be transformative and again, lead to that win-win story. This is an example that's available in the Green Building Report, and Tracy likes this one because it shows that even on commercial terms, even if there's no difference in the rate between the standard mortgage and the green mortgage, the savings, and you'll see that in the line here where it says the 20 in parentheses, is the utility savings for the home buyer, and you saw that on the example of IHS with smart meter data, result in a net smaller amount out of pocket for the home buyer. So even if the bank doesn't do anything else, if they launch almost the exact same product, the fact that the home buyer can pocket the utility savings means less cost of monthly ownership for them. But the banks can go more. They can do things like longer tenor. You can do incentivized interest rates and others. And we'll show you that in the case of Indonesia, for example, they have the central bank has made the down deposit lower. So there's lots of other ways that the banks can collaborate with the central bank and the government to incentivize this market going forward. But even on commercial terms, it completely works. Another example is an asset manager, Asia Green Real Estate, and they invest capital and sustainability expertise in buildings in Asia metropolises. I think this example is from China. It's the Guizhou Tower in Guiyang, if I'm pronouncing correctly. And again, they appeal to institutional investors to give them both financial returns and environmental returns. And you will see a larger story from them in both the IFC's Green Building Report, as well as the case study from this is a multi-use project that we've done. This is that HSBC case study. You can see that this was done as a press release, $130 million for a refinance of portfolio of warehouses. We've done other work, for example, through WDP and others in the warehouse industry as well, where the EDGE label has allowed a participation of multiple investors. So IFC led an $800 million US dollar program where we invested $250 million, and we brought other investors, including institutional investors, for a total of $800 million. So in the workshop that we did with the Climate Bonds Initiative, Sean Kidney, the CEO of Climate Bonds, his message was a label of these properties allows multiple investors to come together and again can really change the market. So let me stop there before we go into the overview of the EDGE program to see other questions that have come up for some of these case studies.
Yes, there's a couple of questions came to the Q&A, but so far I hear that the incremental cost for green building doesn't have to be high. In fact, some case studies show close to minimum. And the potential saving from the utility bills can be substantial. And also the large investment.
My dog, if you heard him.
Sorry?
My doggy is barking in the background, if you heard him.
Doggy.
I'll go on mute for a second.
All right, so this is the three key things that I have seen that I want to highlight. And let's go to the question. There are a couple of questions came through. Let's start with Farrell. So she's asked, as it mentioned that EDGE is allowed for refinancing under green loan. Green loan.
So actually, they have already answered.
We answered that one.
So the next one from
So
Dylan.
the only question. The only question on green insurance. Sorry.
Has the IFC seen any green insurance solutions for the constructions and operational risk for any EDGE developments?
We have, so in Colombia, the child company to Bancolombia actually gives a 10% rebate on the premium for insurance for their properties. So again, Bancolombia did it for developers, and then their insurance arm has actually done another incentive, which is a 10% refinance of the premium. But we would like to do more. I think, again, and there'll be a slide later on where we're going to show you a mapping of all the banks that have at least worked with IFC and with Edge. There could be other ones that are launching their own incentives, and we would love to hear more and be able to tell their story. Insurance absolutely is one of them.
I see another questions. So is there a common green building certification for East Asia or South Asia? And is LEED the closest one? So this was called out.
This is absolutely a great question. What we've noticed is that LEED was absolutely the leader, if you will, and pun forgiven, in the green building mindset. But one of the things that makes Edge different is that we really narrowed it down, and we think we made the green certification through Edge more tailored to emerging markets. LEED is extremely comprehensive, and that is great for the properties that can afford that type of paperwork. So LEED looks at across multiple functions, and there's a lot of paperwork and consultants that have to be done in modeling to achieve that. What we wanted to do with Edge is to launch something where developers did not have to go outside of the system. So Edge became a one-stop shop where the simulation, the paperwork is all together, and it's really focusing on things that a developer can control: energy, water, and materials. So because of that, it is the compliance is cheaper. So we don't want you to think that Edge is any less technical. It's actually quite technical, and you'll see that in the demo, but we think that the paperwork part is a lot easier. So for properties that can afford to go with LEED, please go by LEED. There's other ones like DGMB, BREEAM, local systems. There's the Singapore, the Green Mark. If you can afford the more comprehensive version, we want you to do it. But if you cannot, or if you're only certifying one building, but you have 10 others that you wouldn't think of certifying green, then we want you to work with Edge, because we think we can bring that down. And same thing this is true, especially for residential. LEED really has not been able, or none of the certification systems have been able to crack the residential system in the way that Edge has been, because it's just too expensive for those developers to achieve the compliance and the certification. So IFC works with all the systems. We just think that Edge is the best one.
Thank you. Not to miss out that we have the local BIM Plus system in the local market as well. And I agree with you. The residential market is huge. So we definitely need tool certification to really help us to go through this process. The questions are flying in. We have, let's answer a couple of more questions here, and then we move on to the next sessions. So there's one here saying different regions have different standards, different utility construction rates, and different requirement on green building. How can multinational investor differentiate the performance for a building portfolio with building across different regions?
This is a great question. When, the mindset of that is that IFC, as I said, is first and foremost an investment bank. And so we have been bringing the investment banking experience and the experience of our clients to this work. So we think that the investors can understand intuitively the concept of 20%, right? So if the building is 20% better than the local baseline, if there are different baselines in different countries, then maybe okay. So in Edge itself, you'll see that there is a built-in regulation or local standards that create the baseline for that particular country. And then you have to go to 20% better than that. So that allows for the bundling of buildings, kind of the understanding of what they are and how they're going to behave, because again, you'll have the impact data put together. So that's one way that we are seeing these investors able to understand it across borders, because the 20% part and the certified part is something that they, as an investor, can understand. They don't have to worry about the technical details underneath it.
Good. I see this great question coming through. This is the moment. Is Edge only applicable, available in emerging markets? So this is the point that let's please share with us. What is the developed market? What is the Hong Kong plan?
This is a great question. So when we started Edge, it was indeed only available in the emerging markets. So we did not have Hong Kong, we did not have Europe and others. We have now been adding other countries or cities in the world to Edge itself. We were hoping that Hong Kong would have been launched in our latest updates of baseline, but we actually decided to postpone the launch of the baseline update because we're going to do some more major updates to the Edge software itself. So we think Hong Kong was supposed to be added as of July 1. It may be a few months until we do it, but it's absolutely going to be available. And the reason it's not in the system is that its baseline is more advanced. Hong Kong behaves like a developed country. And so the baselines for offices, for hotels, even for residential is just going to be a little bit higher. So we had to incorporate that baseline data, and we got feedback from you and the feedback from HKQAA, which is one of our partners, to make sure that we recognize the local conditions in Hong Kong. But it is absolutely coming. You'll see other cities in China are there, and Hong Kong will be very, very soon to come.
Excellent news. So this year it is. We will see the tool available for the Hong Kong for developed market this year.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I think we can. I still see some questions, but we can take these probably towards the end of our session. So let's move on, if we might.
Great. So I'll go through it, and we'll see maybe some of these questions will get answered. So we mentioned EDGE, and it stands for Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiency. And EDGE consists of 3 components. First is the free software that helps you choose the most cost-effective ways to build green. The second is that, as I said, that achievable standard that plugs into international green finance criteria of 20% better resource efficiency. And third is a certification system to verify and reward green building projects through a green label. So let's dissect each one a little bit. The EDGE software is the first of its kind in the world because it was the first and only to be launched by a bank. The complexity of the application is hidden beneath the very friendly user interface, and you'll see that in just a second, making it easy for you to cut back on the resource intensity of your building design. We mentioned that EDGE certification is possible for new and existing buildings across the variety of typologies. And multiple projects can be certified with a portfolio approach. You can actually transform a company's entire business model and maximize profits. And you can then disclose this information through platforms such as GRESB or CDP. I mentioned a few case studies earlier where you sort of saw kind of a greater action, but the EDGE website has an extensive library of case studies per project. These can be used for promotion. So we'll talk a lot about the marketing that IFC will extend to you once the projects are certified, or they can be used for proof of concept. And here I gave you a lot of different examples from residences to industrial in different countries in Asia. So you can see that we really cover a whole gamut from more low-income housing to very fancy office buildings by MRC Bank. We've also done a few projects in Asia. For example, this is a case study of Fuzhou Green High-Tech Zone, which includes both new developments and retrofits for 4.5 million square meters of space. We also worked with Jointown Pharmaceuticals for portfolio certifications across 16 properties in several provinces. And this is a case study of education. So again, showing that we can do both large and small projects on both individual and a portfolio basis. This is where EDGE is a little bit different, and we started to talk about this in the questions with Tracy. This is how we're different from other certification standards. We focus only on 3 categories of efficiency with an achievable minimum threshold. So to reach the EDGE standard, a project must reach 20% savings in energy use and 20% savings in water use and 20% savings in construction materials as compared to a local baseline. So for a market that's very familiar with LEED, such as in Hong Kong, it is important to note that EDGE functions very differently. Instead of a points-based system, EDGE uses building physics calculation to help you understand best interventions in your geographical zone. And EDGE is the first and only system which pairs impact with financial calculation. And we'll see that on the demo in just a little bit. All EDGE certified projects save on natural resources, but we also have a way for you to go beyond. So EDGE Advanced and EDGE Zero Carbon are opportunities for builders to aspire to even higher levels of certification, all the way to 100%. And our first zero carbon certified property is in the Philippines, and again shows with a real case study that even higher levels of green can be achieved in emerging markets. Arthur Land is one of the large developers in the Philippines, and they achieved significant energy savings on site, 45%, and are purchasing renewable energy for 100% carbon neutral operations. It's not always possible in emerging markets to have an independent power purchase agreement, but where it is possible, then you can supplement your on-site savings with the purchase of renewable energy for zero carbon. My own house is actually zero carbon certified, not certified, but it's zero carbon because we purchase wind power energy. Interestingly, across the river in the state of Virginia, that's not possible because the local regulations don't allow it. So you can see that even in a market like the United States, certain things are possible and others are not on a municipal level. What Arthur Land has also done is they launched a green bond in the Philippines for their real estate projects. And again, they were a first non-bank issuer of a green bond in the Philippines for 59 million US dollars. And again, they also have been shortlisted for the Financial Times Transformational Business Award for their commitment to sustainability. And they showed that going green, even to 100%, can be done on fully commercial terms that creates value for everybody. This is an example of our EDGE certificate that shows you that each certificate lists the percentage savings and the measures utilized to achieve the green savings. And here you can see how incredibly data-driven EDGE is. So while you may understand, gold, silver, platinum standards, you may not know exactly what that means. EDGE tells you you're 25% better, you're 40% better, you're 100% better than the local baseline. And you can see that for residential project, each unit receives its own green certificate. And this is how we launch green mortgages. So instead of just the building getting a certificate, each unit, you can see literally on this certificate says unit 1, will receive its own individually numbered certificate, which a developer would then hand over to the resident. The resident walks back to the bank and says, I'm here, please process a green mortgage versus a normal mortgage. And this is the way that, again, that we have listened to the needs of our investor clients and launched something that answers their needs. Let me launch now into an EDGE demonstration. I'm going to show you how all of these things work. So if you pardon me, I just have to bring over this other screen. Hopefully you can see that now. So let me make sure I'm going to save it so I don't lose my, my work. So EDGE software is available from edgebuildings.com. And here I have opened up from the EDGE app, I have opened up the new area, and we're going to do an office building together in Shenzhen. So unfortunately, as I said, Hong Kong is not there yet, but it will very, very soon be included. One of the great things is that we have translated everything to multiple languages, including to Chinese. So you can see here information in Chinese. Obviously, I'm going to go back to English because it's going to be a little bit harder for me to do this. But we have demos and some more user guide materials that are done in the local language as well. And I filled in some information here. The beauty of EDGE is that I can start with a typical building. So I'm going to say, this is a default building in EDGE, and I'm going to just start modeling here. Once I know my exact numbers, I will go back here and I will fill this information. And I'm going to do this now for a new building. So I'll go back here and do a preliminary design. to make sure that I have all the right data here. We'll open something new. Let's see, it went into how we can save. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'll start with water. So here I mentioned that EDGE has done a baseline for your country and your city, and this is the water break. So unsurprisingly, water faucets, water closets and urinals, food court or kitchenette, again, this can be taken off once you start modeling, and some other. So, unsurprising breakdown for a typical office building. And if I look at some sensible measures, low flow faucets, dual flush for water closets, water efficient urinals, water efficient faucets, with some of these measures, I can achieve up to 40% water efficiency as of today. At some point in the future, we're going to change this baseline and we'll say, well, everybody is now doing a little bit better, and it may be a little bit harder to achieve that. But for now, in most cases, it is still easy to achieve the green measures and the 20% breakdown. I'm going to do the same on energy. You can see I have some cooling, a little bit of heating. There's some fan energy. A lot is on lighting, and a lot is on computers. Obviously, computers I couldn't necessarily touch for now, but I will tackle some of the other areas. For now, lighting is probably one of the best areas that I can tackle. And interestingly enough, in the next version of EDGE, when we do the baseline updates, LED lighting, which are now considered green measure, will actually go away as a green measure. They will be considered a baseline. But for now, you can still achieve green measures here. And then I can look at other things. So for example, maybe I can put external shading device. Maybe I can make my window to wall ratio a little bit better in certain areas. We know that in cities like New York, they have actually outright banned office towers that are only glass, because glass is just a horrible thermal insulator, and it's very, very difficult to achieve energy savings that way. I can look at other things, for if my building is flat, maybe I can even put solar PV on top. So there's lots of different things that I can do here, and even achieve up to 45% energy saving. My payback maybe for this one is not the best, because I've done some more expensive things, but you can notice that the things that I have been doing is that for every single one of the measures that I have selected, EDGE is giving me incremental cost, and you can see this is done in local currency. It is giving me utility cost reduction, and it's giving me a payback in years. It is not meant to be necessarily 100% accurate. It is a prediction, and with your calculation, you can find out the exact numbers for you. The next version of EDGE will actually have a little override button to help you write in your own information here, so that you can say, well, EDGE predicts this, but actually, my version is going to be something a little bit different. Let me save this before I go any further. If I don't know what these things mean, I can open up here for a short description, and then if I need to click, I will click on more info to show me the full user guide. And again, the user guides have been translated into multiple languages, and this will show me all of the things I need to worry about. When I'm ready to certify, I will upload my documents right here, and it will tell me exactly what I need to do. So this will be as-built facade drawings, external photographs, calculations. And you notice that for China, it's opened up a few other fields. So these are all the calculators that I need to do for the 3-star system. I can also download that. So this is the EDGE assessment, but this is my green building label report and checklist. So this is a way, as I mentioned, to do that intel inside, where EDGE can actually help you get along the way to the China system, and it will tell you exactly what you'll be able to achieve with the checklist that you can also download. And we've done a lot of work to make sure this is really customized for the China market. And you can see here again, I think the checklist is going to open up in Excel. And you can see all the different things and all the different calculators that you have to do. Obviously, again, we designed EDGE to be a global standard. So there's certain global principles that we do. And then when there are local conditions, then we add that in as a requirement. So you can see all the different things that you have to do as a checklist for the local certification system. So it doesn't get you 100% there necessarily, but it gets you pretty far. The materials section is just a little bit different. Instead of being optional where I could choose faucets, lighting, I have to have a floor, I have to have a roof, I have to have walls. And so here it's a pull down menu that's helping me choose different types of materials. So something like fly ash in my floor and roof construction should probably get me over to the edge standard. So you can see here again, I have reached click, 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 because unlike, again, different systems that are points-based where you can trade points between different categories, we require a 20% reduction in each of the 3 categories. So you have to have at least 20% on energy, water, and materials. And then if you want to go to zero carbon, you can still be 20% in water and materials, but you have to be 40% on energy, and that opens the zero carbon calculator to go even further. So you can see here that my carbon emissions are here, and if I'm purchasing renewable energy here, that should be my offset. And so I am now, this could be a zero carbon building that has a 45% on-site efficiency with purchases of renewable energy, achieving a zero carbon standard. So again, very, very technical. There's a lot of information here, but a beautiful streamlined interface that tells you exactly what you need to, tackle through a color coordinated system in a way that connects the impact measures with the financial measures. So all the financial measures are here, and all the impact measures are here. And again, as I said, this can be released on a project by project basis, or it can be done on a portfolio basis as well. So let me stop here again to see if there are any questions about the Edge tool itself, and we can kind of use this as a demo, and then we'll go into the other parts of the program.
Yeah, so there are lots of great questions coming through, but I want to call out 2 things. I think it is very important that you demonstrate for the China market to have the tool and the ability to tie with the local standard. So basically for the local market and international market, from the financing and investor to come in from, for both markets is very important. And also, for the zero carbon certifications, I cannot agree more that we must look at how to help the building industry to move to net zero by 2050. And to bring closer to home, the Hong Kong 2050 is now platform has just issued their research on showing that the green building industry in Hong Kong need to decarbonize 11 million tons of CO2 between now and 2050. And the Edge Zero Carbon tool is certainly pointing us to the right direction to help with this. So with that, a lot of questions coming through. Let's start taking a few. So one from Helen's, you discussed about the 20% better performance than a country baseline earlier in the presentation. How frequently are these updated? Do they align with improvement in building standards requirements?
That's a great question. So IFC is committed to doing it every 3 years. So we launched Edge about 5 years ago. We're now going through that huge baseline update. As I said, one of the things, and I'll show you here, if you go on the Edge Buildings website, you can see some of the announcements of what we're doing in our technical updates announcement. So one of the big changes, for example, is that we realized over the course of 5 years, LEDs, which had been a green measure when we launched, have now become so ubiquitous that we are no longer going to consider them green. We're going to consider them a baseline. We'll just say it's just cheap enough that everybody's just going to have LEDs. And there are a couple of other things that we're doing. What we're doing actually is we're skipping this version 2.2 and going straight to version 3, which has caused some delays, but we think it's going to be a really, really, really exciting part. If there is a local regulation that drastically changes the requirements, then we'll do a local update. So we work, for example, in South Africa. They have some requirements around hot water heaters and others. Those are included in the baseline. So if you click hot water heaters in South Africa, you get no points. in Edge because it's already required. And again, the reason that we didn't launch Hong Kong initially is that your baseline is going to be different. I'm assuming that even though there's need for cooling, there's more efficiency and more things that have been built in. And so, your graph maybe looks a little bit lower, which means that getting to this graph is a little bit harder. But we still think it's doable to get there.
Great, thank you. So the next one, what is the market share for EDGE certification in the mainland China market compared to other green building certification like LEED, BREEAM, China, Freestar? Do you have such data for commercial property? I'm going to bundle this up. So another question is asked about how do financial institutions see EDGE comparing between LEED? So the two questions.
Great questions. I will say in China, we're just starting. Shirong has been working on this. Hao is our new member. We had done a lot of work with the government. You can imagine things like this, the alignments with the local green building labeling took a lot of work. So we took sort of more of a government route to make sure that everything is approved. And then once this is launched, it's going. I would say that this workshop is one of the first times that we've really gone out to the market. So it's still nascent. But as you can see, an example like Colombia, in 2 years, we can very quickly add, millions of square meters, even just in the residential space, let alone in the commercial and others. So trust us, work with us. We think that we have an edge, pun intended again, and we can move forward. When it comes to LEED, again, we ourselves are agnostic. So even IFC will finance properties that do LEED. And again, if the investors are really liking some of the more comprehensive certification systems, we want them to continue with. Banks like EDGE because it's simpler. So it's credibly green, it's accepted by all the international standards, but the paperwork around it is simpler, and they like the financials. They like this part. It is not just around the environmental impact and kind of this intuitive understanding that my building is better. They know exactly by how much is the building better. They know exactly what is the incremental cost, and they know exactly what the utility cost reduction is. So there's a lot more data that's going to this that makes investors much more comfortable with it. And then the processing and the paperwork is just a lot easier in the end. On the residential side, again, the leg up that we have is that each residential property gets its own certificate. Otherwise, you cannot have a green mortgage, right? Any other way, because they're not going to copy the certificates. We issue individually numbered certificates for each residential property. So unsurprisingly, residential is one of our largest EDGE subsectors because people have really taken that up and gone with it.
Great, thank you. A couple of questions on the EDGE baseline. So one is, what is the baseline of EDGE based on, and is it dynamic? And the other one is on from Max. How do we measure a local baseline? Is EDGE conditional only on local baseline, or is there a plan have absolute baseline as well? So two baseline questions.
Lots of great questions. We work with local stakeholders. So we work most closely in China with HKQAA. You saw that we work with Moherd and their center. So there's been a lot of testing, looking at existing buildings and kind of modeling. We have worked with second opinion providers to make sure that they understand, exactly how this works. So EDGE has gone through a lot of technical reviews by local green building councils, by working groups and others. This is not a technical review. We've done others. All of our information is available online. So at the end of the very bottom of the EDGE website, our methodology is described to the point, that it doesn't hurt our intellectual property, and our protocols are all described. So I will talk about our technical training. It sounds like this person is much more technical that you can do. There's some short ones like 5 minutes, 30-minute videos, as well as online training that you can go through. So there's a lot there, but trust us, we are the World Bank. And so the stakeholder input that goes in is massive. And for example, this baseline update that's going to be launched now was a year-long process. We actually announced it last March. We worked with our experts. We worked with the green building councils to make sure that when we launch, it is the right data.
Right, that's a straightforward one. Does EDGE cover F&B sector?
Which one? Tell me what, I don't know
Does
this.
EDGE cover F&B?
Which stands for?
Food and beverage sector.
Oh, okay. We
Restaurant.
do, yes. Yes, and we can help you with that. It will be under hospitality or retail. So we have to figure out exactly what to do. I mean, our concept is that if it has a roof and walls, we can certify it. So, and if we don't have it as a category, we can work with you on a pilot project. So we actually certified airports. We didn't have that as a category. We certified our first airport in Madagascar. And we did that as a pilot project, and we realized that an airport essentially behaves like a shopping center. And so we use some of the same ideas behind a shopping center to launch that. And you can see all of our different projects are here, and you can look at all these different studies by building typology or by country.
We like pilot projects, so definitely we should look into that. So that's actually a lot of great questions coming in. So we still have time. Would you be okay for us to carry on to answer a few more questions?
Sure. Let's make sure, you know, we can see how we don't have to go deeply technical, because I think the next part of the presentation is like how to use all of this in your program. And then anybody who wants to have deeper technical knowledge, we have a lot of different resources to get trained.
Okay, so how about this? We answer a couple more. So one is relating to the EU taxonomy. So how would one treat EDGE certification under the newly adopted EU taxonomy of sustainable finance, as well as the upcoming regional specified taxonomy to be released? Significant contributions to climate mitigations or no significant harm? So EU taxonomy questions.
Great. Yeah, we work in the EU. We work with EBRD, the European Bank, as well as the European Investment Bank, EIB. So they are two of our partners to make sure that all of the EU issues, including their regulation for, they call it near zero carbon buildings, is included in the baseline. So you can imagine if you're working in Europe, cheating EDGE is going to be actually a lot harder because the regulation has already made the kind of the goalposts that much more difficult. So they're going to be have to be a little bit more creative. But those are the two of our partners that are ensuring, again, that all of the taxonomies, all of the requirements are already built into EDGE.
So one more before we move to the next session. This one we talk about. So is the project EDGE certified? Does it qualify for the criteria for green bond principle? Let's bring CBI here.
Absolutely. So I think that was the slide that I had showed. We worked with International Capital Markets Association on their green bond principles. We work with CBI for the climate bonds initiative. And then we also wanted to make sure we work with disclosure bodies such as GRESB and CDP. So, you know, our work is we want to make sure that you have absolute access to green finance. And if we miss something, you know, let us know. We'll work on it. So not only do we satisfy the investment criteria, we also satisfy other kind of real estate and climate disclosure criteria as well. So we have all that covered, and EDGE is explicitly mentioned in those documents, and you'll see them in the links that we have. And I believe that they are also here on our website. So if you go to, I meant to click something else, you'll actually see it in the About section, About EDGE and IFC and green buildings. You'll actually see links at the bottom that show how we work with global principles. So there's GRES, there's ICMA, there's climate bonds. All of these are, and you can see the direct links to their documents.
My understanding, there might be a slight difference between how that is being looked at by the certification body between emerging markets and developed markets on that point, right?
Not necessarily. I think that they look at the most important part is that it's certified, certified as green. So that is that's under the green bond principles and with climate bonds. So climate bonds, for example, WDP in Romania, which is maybe somewhere in between, you know, it's a certified green loan. It was certified by Cicero. Acorn, very first green bond in Kenya. Well, I think Cicero also maybe certified them. They were also, you know, recognized by Climate Bonds Initiative. So we have again worked across the board between quasi-developed, if you will. Romania is still somewhere in between, and emerging markets too.
Great. So let's carry on for the rest of our day.
Great. These are great questions, though.
Yes.
Let's see. And I'm going to have to do this. So swap it. There we go. So what we want to talk about is how to use Edge and how to work with IFC when creating a green real estate program. For our banks, we can help you understand how to include Edge, everything from education and incentives, how to work this into a loan agreement. For example, if you have incentives, one of our clients has done tranches of funds so that they release a certain tranche of funds to a developer on commercial terms. And then once that project is certified, they get the second tranche, which is more of the incentivized building. We talk a lot about kind of embedding a technical expert to ensure the certification is moving forward. And then obviously IFC can help you with all of the impact reporting, which is directly done from Edge. I was actually the lead for impact reporting for IFC's own green bond. So I know how difficult and painful that process can be. Edge calculates all that information and spits it out for you. So it's very, very, very easy. These are some of the banks that we have already worked with. And you can see that they have launched different incentives in the market. So Global Climate Partnership Fund actually invests in local banks. So if you're a smaller bank looking for financing, GCPF could be a partner for you. And they provide technical assistance, and they have global reach. Bancolombia, we did a huge example of that. They then were followed by Davivienda. And then one of the ones, the most recent, this is Grupo Sura. I talked about the refund of the insurance premium. And one of the ones that we've launched most recently is ProCredit Bank. They operate both in Europe and now in Ecuador. They are giving a 50 basis point lower interest rate for both construction finance and for mortgages, significantly longer tenor. So they want to compete in Peru. They're giving a 12-year tenor. The Banco Pichincha, which sets sort of the standard, it's a 2-year, I think it's 2.5-year long tenor. And they also, again, because they work with GCPF, have free technical assistance. If there are banks in your area that provide this, and we haven't mentioned them, we do have this banking on the Edge banking pages, and we'll be very, very happy to work with you. One, to add you if these incentives already exist, or to help you launch these incentives. So with Ecuador, because it was already an established Edge market, bank ProCredit staff is now teaching their staff in Europe, in the headquarters, to say, actually, this is why we are doing it. These are all the things that, that you would need to do. For both banks and developers, Edge really simplifies the green bond issuance process. And we can, again, advise you. So I am now working, for example, with Shelter Afrique. This is a development finance institution in Africa, and they're interested in launching a green bond for housing. So again, I want to make sure that my team is not an expert on the bond part, but we are experts on the green part. And we worked with CBI. Sean Kidney spoke on our webinar just a few months ago. And Edge very much can be used to establish criteria for use of proceeds. We are educating all of the leading second opinion providers. We talked to Cicero, we talked to Sustainalytics, many of the other ones. And then again, because of that certificate, the allocation process is even easier, because the certificate is the link between the investor and the developer and even the home buyer in the end. And obviously, we've talked a lot about the reporting. And then really what we do from the IFC side is have this kind of program support, best practices and technical assistance. And I want to be very humble to say the lessons that we're bringing to you are not IFCs, they're our clients. These are the things that our clients have done. They've kind of gone through some of these hard things, and we want to make sure that your members and folks in Hong Kong don't have to go through the same pain process. So we are, IFC's role is to bring together some of these lessons learned from different markets and make sure that nobody has to start from scratch. These are some of the examples of government incentives for green buildings, including in China, where they're kind of a little bit more localized, and they range from discounted rate in Bangladesh that the central bank passes on, to height bonus incentives, which we see as incredibly valuable. It is something that has really transformed the green building market in Peru. And again, these are available on the government pages, and we can work with both the national and the local governments to educate them on the action that they can take to further catalyze the green building market. Whether you're a developer, a bank, or a government, hiring an edge expert or becoming an edge expert for all of those with those fabulous technical questions is truly best practice. And we have both different level of technical advisory, including comprehensive advisory agreement with IFC. We have many ways to get trained. We paused the local training so far, but I think very soon we'll start to reopen that. And we have a lot of options for digital training. So there's a self-paced training done by GBCI, and live stream training, which is done either by our consortium of ThinkStep and SGS and GBCI. You can see that it's about $150, either 2 half days or 5 one-hour sessions. So depending on your learning style, you can choose which way to go. Once your projects are certified, IFC will extend incredible marketing support to make sure that we promote your investment. So this is just a short preview of what we have already done with our partners. This is actually a screenshot from our Edge marketing toolkit, and each one of these examples has a case studies of the work that we already have done. One of the great things, again, that we bring to the table is that we connect developers and investors. And I didn't show this in the demo, but there is a button that says, do you want to share your project with investors or banks? If you tell us yes, IFC can then release this information to potential investors. We can work with Tracy on a level of association or individual banking partners to let them know, here's your pipeline. Here's what is of interest. We can cut it either which way. If you're based in Hong Kong but investing in Cambodia, we can tell you what projects are happening in Cambodia. And if there are not projects happening in Cambodia, we can help you launch a workshop for your developers to help them understand how to do this, so that you get a fresh cut of the pipeline of projects and connect with them directly. We talked a lot about the technical part of Edge. This is just a preview of the certification workflow. So you can see that the projects can get both a preliminary Edge certificate on design. This is very important for co-marketing, project study, for sales promotion. And they get a final Edge certificate after the project has been built. Edge is an asset certification. It does not need to be renewed. However, projects that do want to go to zero carbon do need to renew their projects every 2 to 4 years, but it's a much more streamlined process where you only look at your utility data. You don't look at the entire building design. You just look at your utility data and you match that to the procurement of renewable energy. IFC works with different certifiers who have the license to certify projects. IFC itself is not a certifier. We're World Bank, we're an investment group, and so we have licensed different certifiers. 2 of them are global, GBCI and ThinkStep SGS, and HKQAA has a license for China. There are 2 different models. In one, like GBCI, you have to hire an independent local Edge auditor. Important to know is that GBCI is the same entity that offers LEED. So you can see here that we are working even with the original founder of LEED, because they see Edge as a great technology disruptor that's bringing those projects not just from the top end level, but even down into kind of the more, as I said, democratizing the market. Some of our projects have been double certified. So Johnson Controls headquarters in China are actually double certified with both Edge and LEED. And they did that through GBCI, kind of 2-for-1 part. ThinkStep and SGS and HKQAA have more of a one-stop shop model where they will price you both the certification and the audit together. It's important for you to know that all of this information is on the certified pages. You can actually get a quotation for your project and you can find out exactly what you need to do. We may not have launched the HKQAA info quite yet. I think that's still coming, I think, in the next week, but know that they will have the ability to work with you even as a local certifier and to take your projects across China. And in the end, this is our summary, is that we think that we deliver value. So you saw that we have that financial calculator, truly a huge differentiator. There's a simplified compliance that leads to reduced processing and cost effectiveness. Edge enables incredible impact reporting, and while making your project true to your local conditions, you still get the World Bank Group brand and the cachet of the international projects. So we'll end today, before we go to more questions, with a call to action. So we want to make sure that you are receiving training, either for staff or consultants, or you're hiring consultants that are already accredited by IFC. We can help you organize an Edge Discovery workshop, and we have modules for banks, developers, governments. There's lots of marketing materials to utilize with clients, and the case studies for proof of concept. And then you can request support from IFC to help you move forward. One of the things that you'll get in your materials is our contact info. So this is my contact info. I encourage you to follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn, as well as our team in Asia. So you heard from Hao and Shirong, who are online, including our colleague Farida, who is our Asia lead. And I've included the Edge number here, or email rather, for technical questions that they can help answer. So I'll end here now and see what other questions we have on kind of how to keep incorporating these things into the next steps. And we hope that this is really a beginning of our relationship, because there's a lot that can be done, and we're barely scratching the surface for next steps.
Excellent timing, I say. We will still have about just under 10 minutes for Q&A, and I see still a lot coming. So let's start answering quite a few of them. And at the same time, I also want to mention that I just launched another poll that we would love to hear your feedback. So please take a moment to let us know whether these webinars helped with you, and we will take your feedbacks on board seriously. So let's go with this. Okay, how adaptable are the energy efficiency measured to a wide range of building specification, including ceiling heights and floor plans, and in case of retrofitting? That's the question.
We think that they're very applicable, and I think I'll kind of go back to the website, where you can see on our project studies that we have done a whole bunch of different buildings in many different sectors. So let it load. So we have done projects from airports. You can think about huge ceilings, education, homes, and from homes we've done both low-income housing to individual houses. We've done hospitals, hotels. Light industry is the area that we're moving into, offices, retail, warehouses. You can see lots of different ways here, and that building physics calculation adapts to that part. What I showed you in the Edge app was the template, but you can override this information. You can see floors above grade, floors below grade. What is the floor height? What is the occupation density? There's a lot of information here that you can override. So the beauty is that you can start big and say, okay, well, what if I'm building a project in Shenzhen versus if I'm going to go into Cambodia? How is that going to be different? So I can get a quick sense of my building, and then I can start narrowing that down to the point where I'm ready to certify, this breakdown here is exactly my building. That's what we like about Edge, is you can use it for self-assessment. It's completely free. It's completely available to you. Start big picture and start narrowing that down to where you need to be.
Great, thank you. So a couple on investor side. So is there any investor use Edge as a tool? And is there any plan for IFC to cooperate with the local institution in mainland China? I think the answer is yes, but I'll let you elaborate.
And when you say investors, do you mean more institutional investors or other banks?
It was not specified, so.
So let's go back again here. We'll show you that these are the institutions that have at least launched incentives. So from Bancolombia, you can see a lot of Latin American ones. And then we showed you the example of HSBC that used it. Someone like Asia Green is attracting institutional investors through things like their fund, or it can be through a green bond. So, you know, the individual banks or developers that we work with then have a wider array of investors that are coming in, you know, through green bond or green loan principles as well. And IFC itself obviously uses EDGE, and we've done it in different projects for to bring a coalition of investors on board. But yes, we are very interested in deploying this advisory to you to kind of, you saw that preview of all the different modules that we have, and we have a lot more knowledge and information that we can kind of peel the different layers from treasury, you know, how to launch a green bond, to new business, to make sure that things like EDGE and these concepts are being incorporated into a new business development.
All right, so 3 more questions. Our timing is perfect. So here, this one, is EDGE only adopted in South America, South Africa, and Asia? How about Europe and US?
It is. So we are not yet available in the US. We're working with American Institute of Architects for that, but we are across the board, and you can see in the app, I think it's, if I zoom out, you can see all the different countries that we cover. So we do cover Europe, Latin America, but not yet North America and Australia. And in Europe, we're working with one of the largest retailers. We're actually certifying 10,000 of their stores across Europe. So this is a portfolio certification process that we're doing. And little by little, our plan is to be fully global. So IFC's mission is emerging markets. So we wouldn't, for example, do this much hand-holding, if you will, if a developer comes to us from Europe, because it's not our mission. But EDGE can be used there. We will do a lot more work, kind of more heavy lifting for projects that are coming for emerging markets.
Right, 2 questions along the line of carbon offsets and the EDGE Zero. So one is, how can carbon offset play a role in green real estate? And the other one, how does regular EDGE versus EDGE Zero carbon certifications lead to increased lending and borrowing incentive?
Great question. So for our zero carbon principle, you can see here that I'm now on the certified pages of EDGE, and this is where zero carbon is described. So zero carbon was launched as part of the UN Secretary General's initiative. So EDGE actually is an implementing partner because we work with World Resources Institute and with the UN and with the World Rebuilding Council on this concept. And so the idea behind carbon offsets is that there's certain things that you can't do with renewable energy. So if you have gas, for example, in your kitchenette, in your office, it cannot be done with renewable energy. But we follow the WRI principle, which is energy efficiency before renewable energy, and on-site renewable energy before off-site, renewable energy before offset. So offsets truly are the kind of the last measure, but they are possible because, you know, certain things like fuel for cooking cannot be done, you know, through renewables as of now. The question to you is how can it launch the extra layer? I think if there are incentives or there's ways to really attract other institutional investors. You saw that Arthaland launched a $60 million green bond. They actually have committed to, if not all of their properties, at least a large portion of their properties being zero carbon certified in the next 10 to 20 years. So they were able to really have a huge pronouncement and actually get additional investors to participate. Their bond, when they launched it on the Philippines Stock Exchange, they did it, it was like 2 billion, or is it, I'm translated from it was a 50% increase. So they had an option to increase their bond. And because there was so much interest, they spent that option. So you can see that I mentioned that every single either developer or bank that we worked with that has launched a green bond has told us that it has been oversubscribed. There was a lot more interest than the volume that they were able to provide, which tells me that there's a lot of appetite there.
Great, last one. The last one is more like a comment instead of a question. So it's saying, love the H2 web-based, very good idea. One button connection and potential investor is really neat. Are you looking for more developers?
Yes, we would love to work with either developers or banks. You know, it's really kind of the call to action. There's a lot of training, as I said, that we have. It's available here. There's some more demos of the Edge app through our YouTube channel. So we can do some, some more guidance for you, but we also want you to know that a lot of these things have been recorded and are available. So we did, for example, a webinar with Climate Bonds Initiative on how to launch Edge for green bonds, and we kind of really dissected the green bonds example. That's been recorded. It's available on our YouTube channel. So we have a lot of learning. And when we did the webinar for Africa, we did it with the other regional banks who sort of announced their commitment as well. And I'm hoping that once we have the recording of this one, we'll put it back on our YouTube channel as well, and we can cross-share it too.
Thank you, Rosemary. Our timing is great. I mean, it's spot on. And we really work hard on this webinar, don't we? This is the most interactive webinars I moderated, I have to say. So many questions, great questions coming from the floor. So thank you very much for your excellent presentation and showing us the huge green building investment opportunity in Asia and examples around the world how to assess green building financing. And I hope everyone on the webinar would agree with me that green building industry presents the biggest investment opportunities in the regions, and we need to take actions to collaborate across different sectors to maximize these opportunities and to help the building industry to move towards net zero by 2050. So Rosemary and Hao, do you have any, can you share your parting remarks?
I will let, I think, Hao speak, because I think I've spoke enough today. So my parting remarks are, if you build it green. All the technical measures and all the financial instruments that are needed to build green exist today. We need believers, we need champions. It needs humans to help us build this.
Thank you. Hao?
Yes, thank you, Rosemary, and thank you, Tracy, for a very excellent moderator work. And also thanks to so many great questions from the audience.
We want to see your face.
Can you hear me?
No, is your camera on?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
no?
Carry on. I'll let you carry on.
Okay. So I think building on the presentation by Rosemary, I believe you have better, from the audience, you have better understanding of the Edge certification. And also, I assume you have more questions apart from those one raised in the Q&A session. So later on, after the webinar, we will share our Chinese version on the presentation, maybe for your better reference because of language. And due to limited time, we cannot answer so many questions in very detailed approach. So later on, if you have any concerns and any questions about the tools, me and Shirong, our colleague based in Shanghai, we will very happy to support on this. And also, as Rosemary just mentioned, that it's still nascent in China. But in the next 2 to 3 years, we've already built a pipeline to support green building certification in the market, especially in Great Bay Area. I know there are a lot of policy support from the government on green building. So I believe there will be a big potential in the market, especially in Hong Kong. Just Rosemary mentioned, we will include the baseline for Hong Kong in the next version, which will be launched soon. And I will share with you or later once we have it ready. And in addition, as Rosemary mentioned, more trainings will be scheduled. There are a lot of several kinds of approach you can join. So just let us know. For me and for Shu and for Tracy, just reach out to us if you have any needs on the training, and we will happy to support. Thank you very much. Thank you for your participation. Thank you, Tracy. Over to you.
Thank you, Hao. Thank you, Rosemary. So allow me to, since we mentioned GBA, so allow me to take this opportunity to share with you that under the Hong Kong 2050 is now and the Greater Bay Area Green Finance Alliance platform, which Hong Kong Green Finance is collaborating with, I'm leading the green building project with the goal to decarbonize and to scale up green investment for the building industry in the Greater Bay Area. So please feel free to reach out to me if you want to take part in this pilot project. Finally, let let me thank our speakers, Rosemary, excellent presentation as always, and thank all our participants on this webinar, and our co-host IFC, supporting organization including HKMA, FSDC, HKGBC, and HKQAA. So, and also please follow HKGFA for all future events. So I wish you all a good day and stay safe. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.